Once upon a time, in a quiet village pressed between silver hills, there lived an old stonemason named Elias. Elias was a master craftsman. His bridges connected villages, his towers reached toward the clouds, and his walls had protected the town through storms and wars alike. But despite his great skill, Elias was a man of few words. He believed in actions, not chatter, in bricks, not promises, in the hard truth of stone, not the soft flutter of speech. His apprentice, Lena, was his opposite. She was a girl of only 16, but her heart was full of life. She sang as she worked. She spoke to the birds, the villagers, the wind. Where Elias laid one careful brick, Lena laid 10 words of hope. Words are light, Lena, Elias would say, his rough hands smoothing the edge of a stone. They blow away with the wind. A stone stays. A stone matters. Lena wanted to believe him, but in her heart, she wondered. One spring morning, Lena found a feather outside the workshop. It was pale, almost weightless, and it danced in her palm. She brought it to Elias. "Look," she said, smiling. "It's so soft, so light." Elias set down his heavy hammer. He picked up a stone and placed it beside the feather. "This stone can crush your feather in an instant," he said quietly. "That's why weight matters, Lena. That's why words don't." Lena frowned. She gently blew on the feather, and it floated off her palm, soaring up and away. "The stone can crush," she said softly, "but the feather can fly across the whole valley. Your stone will never move unless you push it." Elias chuckled and shook his head. "Keep working, little one." But Lena's question stayed in the air, drifting like the feather. That year, the village faced the harshest winter in decades. Snow fell heavy on the rooftops. Ice crept across the rivers. The old stone bridges groaned under the weight of snowdrifts. Villagers began to worry. What if the bridges collapsed? What if Elias, who was now old and slower, had made mistakes? At first, it was just a whisper. "I heard Elias doesn't check the stones anymore." Then another. Someone said the bridges are weaker than they look. Soon, the whispers became a storm. No one dared cross the bridges. No one hired Elias for repairs. Elias watched, heart heavy, as his life's work stood untouched. Not a single stone had moved. Not a single crack had appeared. But his bridges were empty. Lena couldn't stand it. She loved Elias, not just as a teacher, but as a man whose hand had shaped their world. She knew the bridges were strong. She had helped build them. She had seen his care, his wisdom, his quiet love for the village. One morning, Lena stood in the town square, facing the gathered villagers. She took a deep breath. "Have any of you seen Elias's bridges break?" she asked, her voice trembling. The crowd murmured, "No." "Have any of his towers fallen?" "No." "Then why?" Lena cried. "Do you trust a whisper over your own eyes?" The villagers fell silent. Lena's voice rose stronger. "A whisper can break a bridge without moving a stone. A word can ruin a man without touching his hands. But a voice, a true, brave voice, can remind us of what we've already seen, already known, already believed." The villagers shifted, ashamed. One by one, they returned to the bridges. Elias watched from his workshop window as the villagers crossed his bridges again. He saw the baker lead his donkey across the old stone arch. He saw the children race up the tower steps, laughing. He saw the merchants hauling carts across the cobblestones. And finally, he saw Lena standing on the edge of the bridge, smiling up at him. For the first time in years, Elias felt something heavier than stone settle in his chest. But it was not sadness. It was gratitude. He stepped outside, his boots crunching on the frosty ground, and walked to Lena. "You were right," he said softly. That spring, Elias decided to build one final tower, his tallest yet. Lena worked beside him every day, laying stone after stone, her chatter filling the air. On the final day, as they placed the last brick, Elias turned to her. "You know," he said, his voice thick, "I used to think only stone mattered. Lena looked at him, eyes shining. But you taught me, Lena. Words matter, too. She laughed softly. Not just words, Elias. Which words? Years passed. The tower stood tall, a symbol not just of Elias's skill, but of Lena's voice. Travelers came from far away to see it. But more than that, they came to hear the story. The story of the old stonemason who learned that a whisper can break, or a whisper can build. Of the apprentice who reminded him that words carry a weight no stone can match. And in the village square, there grew a small garden called the Garden of Echoes. On its stones were carved words, the kind that lifted, not crushed. Your voice matters. Kindness builds bridges. A whisper can heal or harm. Villagers would visit, place their hands on the stones, and remember, because sometimes it's not the weight you hold in your hands, but the weight you carry in your heart. Words may seem light, they may seem soft, but they carry a power no stone, no tower, no wall can match. A careless whisper can destroy what years of work have built. A kind voice can restore what fear has stolen. Speak wisely, speak bravely, because your words are the bridges between hearts.